Hi everyone, it's Susan Jones and welcome back to my Sunday Spotlight. In case you're new here, I am a former K-2 teacher who loves sharing tips and tricks and ideas here over on YouTube. So while you're here, if you think you would like some new ideas and strategies that you can take and use in your classroom right away, go ahead and press that subscribe button and click the bell. That way you get notified of all of my new videos. Now, this week, if you saw me with the big pencil here, you know you have a writing tip coming to you. I went ahead over the summer and started a playlist with some of my writing workshop videos that have strategies and tips for teaching writing workshop to K-2 students. So I will add this video to that playlist. But today I wanted to go ahead and share 2 easy ways that you can go ahead and get your students adding more details into their writing. So let's dive in. Over the summer, I actually held a free 4-part video series, and each little video kind of talked about some tips and ideas for getting your students started, and also just a couple deeper tips about teaching writing workshop in a K-2 classroom. That series has ended, but I did keep it live down on my page, so I will link that down in the description in case that's something you want to watch. Each video is about 10 to 15 minutes long, so it's about an hour's worth of PD broken up into kind of bite-sized, manageable chunks for you to go ahead and watch. And each video also comes with a little guide that has some tips from the videos as well as any anchor charts that I mentioned within the video. So like I said, that will be linked down below for you to watch on your own time. But these 2 tips are actually from video 4 of that series, and they are about adding details to your writing. So by now your students are probably writing personal narratives. Most of you in the K-2 world kind of kick off your year teaching your students how to write personal narratives. Now up here in the Northeast, I know that many of you just started school, so you might still be launching your writing workshop, but these tips are great to keep kind of in your back pocket, and they're great to be used anytime you want your students adding just a little bit more to their writing. The first tip I'm going to share is to have your students add sensory details. Now I go ahead and use this anchor chart right here, and it's great because most primary students are already familiar with their 5 senses, making this kind of an easy strategy to begin with. So wherever students are in their story when you are introducing this, I like to have them kind of close their eyes and visualize their character, and if you're doing personal narratives, their character is them. Have them close their eyes and kind of go through each of the senses with them, asking them to think about, what they could smell during that time, what they could see during that time, what they could taste, touch, each of the 5 senses. And while you're doing that with your mini lesson, that way they get some ideas when they go back to their own seats to actually start writing. So I always challenge them to at least be able to add 1 sensory detail, and we usually try to aim for 2 or 3 throughout their story. Now, as with any of these details, I do like to make it clear to my students that especially these sensory ones, they can really be added to both the words and the illustrations. So these can definitely be used even if your students aren't exactly writing, paragraph long stories yet. So if, for instance, your students talk about being able to feel the wind blowing through the air, you can show them how they can go ahead and write down in their story, I felt the wind blowing through the air. Or you can actually show them how to draw, gusts of wind in the illustrations. If you're talking about smelling, maybe you could smell the fresh popcorn. Again, you can write that down in the story. I could smell the fresh popcorn as it was popping. Or you can go ahead and draw like little lines to show the smell coming from the popcorn in your story. When I'm modeling this in front of my class, I definitely like to use the same example and show it in both ways. So for instance, with that popcorn example, I would show them how I could write it in my story using the words, and then I also show it to them in the illustration as well. They don't have to do both, but I like to show it that just so they know that they can. And also that sensory details anchor chart is completely free in the video 4 guide. So if you head over to that writing mini series and you just download the guides, it's in video 4's guide, so you can grab that. Now, another way I love to have my students add details to their writing is through their illustrations. Now, I mentioned this in my writing series, but it always seems to be the default that my students draw just a bright shining sun over in the corner of their paper, right? Like almost every illustration box has a bright shiny sun. Sometimes it has a smiley face. Other times it's like the line from one corner to another and the rays just coming down on the page. But I like to explain to my students that it's not always, you know, a beautiful sunny day. So I like to use 3 different mentor texts for this, not all at one time, but I've used all 3 of these and loved them. The first one is Thunder Cake by Patricia Polacco. And this story is a great one. Obviously, Thunder Cake, might be able to infer that there's a thunderstorm happening in the story. And I actually use these stories in my reading workshop as well to talk about how the setting can affect the plot. We kind of look through the illustrations and we listen to the words that the author uses to talk about the setting on this day. And I specifically choose stories that aren't sunny to emphasize this point. I also love to use the story Owl Moon and Snowy Day by Ezra Jack Keats. Those are great mentor texts for showing students how they can add some vivid imagery to their, not only again, the words, you could write it down, or we can show how you can add it to the illustration just to add a little more details about your story. So now I'm gonna go ahead and challenge you and say that once your students have a personal narrative written down this year, whether they already have it or it's not coming for weeks, like I said, put this tip in your back pocket. But once they have kind of a beginning, a middle, and an ending to their story, challenge them to go back in and add more details. And you're gonna do that very specifically by sharing these 2 different ways that they can do this. And just to make it very explicit, I would absolutely teach these skills on 2 entirely different days. They are 2 different strategies that both need their own complete mini lesson. So see if you want to start with the sensory details and use that anchor chart that you have for free. Like I said, it's listed in the description down below, and see if they can go back and add some sensory details. Then kind of switch it up as they're thinking about adding a new story or thinking about their own story they've already written, and have them think about the setting and those background details and where they can add different images to their setting and their illustrations, and what they can also add in their text. All right, everyone, so those are just 2 tips I have for getting your students to easily go back into their stories and add some details to their writing. If you have any other tips and strategies that you've used in the past and love, please leave them down in the comments below. And if you like this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up so I know. And I will see you next Sunday. Bye.